Hey everyone. So I get asked a lot how I handle running high mileage or how I kind of got to the point where I am where I'm running and I'm not getting injured, those sorts of things. So I've been running just for a little bit of background. I'm 24 now. I went on my first run when I was 17. So that is it's been over 7 years now. When I first started running, I did kind of get injured a lot. I didn't really know what I was doing, but it's basically been a slow progression. And that's what I always say for everyone. You're not just going to right off the bat be able to run every day. You're probably, if you have never ran before, ever, you'd be lucky to be getting out there 3 days a week, running 5 to 10 minutes at a time. Run walk intervals. I mean, you build up to these things. A lot of people who either follow me or I work with, they come to me and they can, at this point, they're probably running at least like 10 miles per week. And from there, they always wonder, how can I get to the point where I'm running 60 miles a week? How can I get to the point where I'm running marathons? And the fact of the matter is, consistency is so key. So if you're running 10 miles a week, you can't just make that huge leap. It's going to take you probably at least to be comfortably running 50, 60 miles a week, a year and a half, 2 years minimum. I mean, we're going to have to see you from 10 miles per week doing 15 to 20 miles per week consistently for like 3 months before we kind of bump you up from 20 to 25, 25 to 30. And the way that I do it is it's a 10% increase per week. So if you ran 10 miles last week, you're running 11 the following week, and then like 12 and a half. And then it would be like 14. But then you also have to have a cutback week every 3 to 5 weeks, where you're cutting back down to maybe like 8 miles per week to let your body recover from that training. But then we build back up based off of the prior week. So it's not something that's going to happen like that overnight. It's going to take months, and you're going to have to be consistent, and you're really going to have to like figure out a way for it to fit into your routine, because the routine is going to be where you're able to find time to put in these miles. I mean, that's going to be probably your first problem is, when are you going to put in all these miles? If you're running 10 miles a week, that's maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours of your time. If you want to bump it up to even 20, that you're talking doubling the time that you're spending doing this. So you're going to really need to carve out time for that, and you'll get there on the way to that point. But it's that 10% rule every week. And then also another thing that I see a lot of people do who are in this like 10 to 25, maybe 30 mile per week area, is they sign up for these races. Like they just sign up for a marathon. And it concerns me, because if you are not able to comfortably, like it doesn't scare you, you're not anxious to run 8 to 12 miles on any given weekend for a long run, like it's just, if you can't do that easily, like where you don't even really bat an eye, I don't like to see you attack marathon training, just because marathon training is so intense. And the way that social media perceives it is like, oh, anyone can do it, everyone should do it. And the thing is, anyone can do it, but after you've built to a certain level. I don't want people who just have never ran, just, sign up for a race, or you only run 3 miles 3 days a week, sign up for a marathon. Why don't we take it step by step? Maybe you can sign up for a marathon that's in a year away, but 5 months away, it's a little bit aggressive. If you're 3 to 5 months out from a marathon, I would expect at a minimum you can run 25 to 30 miles a week, and you comfortably are doing 8 to 10 mile or 8 mile long runs, and you have done a 10 mile long run at some point within the last like 2 months. Otherwise, it's too much to do to your body if you just don't have the foundation for it. I mean, you're talking 40 mile weeks with a 20 mile long run. I mean, 20 miles, it's not going to get easier than it sounds at this point to you. If you're training for a marathon, like, okay, you're literally going to go from like 10 mile long run to 12 mile long run to 14, 16, 18, 20. Like, and it's not going to come easy. Like, it's going to be really hard. And so that's why you need to have this foundation where 10 miles is not that hard for you. That way you can build to this 20-mile, pot of gold long run. But even then, I mean, it's like you're going to go from your longest training run being 19 to 23 miles, and you're going to have to go and run 26.2. So I like to see the foundation get built, and I think that is the number one way to avoid injuries. And there is someone who I am currently coaching. She signed up with me in June. No, it must have been in April. It was in April. We signed up for 6 months together, and she was like, I am running a marathon in 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, great, awesome. Let's see some of your training logs. And I looked, and I was like, almost like horrified for this person. Like, she said, oh, but I had this like kind of injury thing flare up during my taper, and I'm looking at her training logs, and like the marathon plan was just not like, it was no. Like, I was like, okay, if you're experiencing pain, like an injury during your taper, and this is what you did for training, you can't run this. And as hard as it is for a coach to say, I don't really advise you to do this, ultimately it's your decision, but I just don't think that like you had the foundation for this. I fear that if you do this race, given that you're hurting already, that you are really going to like harm yourself. And usually most people would just blow me off, and kind of do their own thing. But she actually was like, you're right. And I was like, yeah, switch to the half, so she did the half, and it was like a crash and burn at the half. Like, she said at mile 9 or something, and she just like couldn't even run anymore. And I was like, thank God you only did the half. And so we did a little bit of like rehab for a month to 2 months. And I was just like, okay, we are starting from square one. Like, we are just going to do easy runs, like 3 to 4 miles. And we are just going to build. Like, that's all we're doing. We're taking you from nothing and being injured to just like building a solid base. Weightlifting in there, cross training in there. It was slow, but it was consistent, and she was very consistent. So that was back in April when she got hurt and all that stuff happened. So now it was on the 4th of July. That's what it was. It was her first race since this whole incident. She's told me she wanted to do all these other races, and I was just like, no, like, we're building a foundation for you. And yeah, she did that half in like 2:30. Her 5K PR when she signed up with me was like 26:30 or something. So she does this 5K on the 4th of July, and she ran like 23:30. And I was like, what? Like, how? Like a 3 minute? Like 3 minutes. And I attribute that to the fact that she has just been super consistent, and she hasn't been like killing herself. She hasn't been like, oh, I'm going to do a marathon, and I have to do 20-mile long runs and all this. It's just, she's running 3 to 4 miles every day. Like, she does these easy runs. She's building the foundation to allow her to go into marathon training with a solid base where she's not going to get hurt again. And that it just makes me happy when people like do stuff like that, because that's exactly how you're supposed to train. And all of her hard work and like dedication to the plan and actually just being consistent and not going crazy really worked out for her. I mean, a 23:35K is crazy. I mean, all she was doing was easy runs. Like, it's really all, I mean, a few workouts here and there, but nothing crazy, no crazy long runs, nothing. She's not really trained for anything. It's just, she had a 5K, 3-minute PR. Blew me out of the water. But now that she's at the point where she's running 25-30 miles a week, she's looking to run a marathon in December. And I'm thinking, okay, it's July now. I think that you could be ready to start training in September for marathon, and she's going to get to that point and just have like such a more solid foundation going into that marathon training cycle than she ever did before. And so I'm just totally an advocate of being consistent. Don't jump the gun on things. Like, just if you can focus on one thing, it would be consistency. Just getting out there, doing your runs day after day. And that's going to pay off in your favor. And you will be able to build to where like the mileage that I'm at, and the paces that I hit for my runs. I mean, honestly, I train so much that I should actually be a lot faster than I am if I was like really talented at this sport. But I'm not a talented runner. I'm like a workhorse. Like, I run literally 60 miles a week. Like, that's just what I do, and that's like the only way that I've ever improved. Like, when I did hit my 3:14 PR, like I was running 85-mile weeks. Most people would think, oh, you only need to run like 50, but for me personally, like I had to like build so much to get to that level. Just to run my first Boston qualifying time, like I was running 70 miles a week. So like it took me so much to break for the first time. I was running like 50 miles a week. Like it just took me a lot more mileage, a lot more training. So don't worry, you will get there. Don't freak out. Just be consistent, and that's the number one thing that you can do.